There are three types of people who recover from financial ruin faster than everyone else. It doesn't matter how deep the debt is. It doesn't matter how long the pressure has been sitting on your chest. Some people collapse under it, and others somehow rebuild everything. History is full of examples. Al Pacino spent decades building one of the most celebrated careers in Hollywood. By 2011, he had accumulated $50 million. Then, one morning, it was gone. Not spent, stolen. A corrupt accountant had been quietly draining his fortune for years while Pacino was working. He had to sell property just to cover basic expenses. $50 million reduced to survival mode overnight. MC Hammer was earning $33 million a year at his peak. He had a mansion, a staff of 200 people on his personal payroll, a fleet of cars, and a lifestyle that felt untouchable. By 1996, he was filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The income had been enormous. The spending had been larger. When the music slowed down, the whole structure collapsed under its own weight. Walt Disney lost his first animation studio before a single person had heard of Mickey Mouse. His early company, Laugh-O-Gram Films, went completely bankrupt in 1923. He arrived in Hollywood with $40 in his pocket and a suitcase. The empire that would eventually become one of the most valuable entertainment companies in human history was built entirely on the rubble of that first collapse. Three different collapses, three completely different recoveries. Because when everything falls apart, something inside a person activates, and that reaction almost always falls into one of three types. Once you know which type you are, your next move becomes much clearer. These are the three types of people who recover fastest from financial ruin. One of them is you. My name is Bron. On this channel, we get into the financial truths that most people never hear, the invisible mechanics of money, the patterns behind who builds wealth and who stays stuck. If you are watching this right now, there's a reason. Hit that subscribe button and drop your type in the comments when we get there. Let's go. Before we get into the three types, I want you to do one thing. Think back to the last time your finances fell apart. Not a bad month, a real collapse. The kind where you stopped answering the phone, where you moved the mail from the counter to the drawer without opening it, where you did the math in your head for the 100th time and got the same impossible answer every time. How did you respond in the first few days? Not what you planned to do, not what you wish you had done, what actually happened inside you. Because researchers who study financial recovery have found something that most financial advice completely ignores. The speed of your recovery has almost nothing to do with how much you lost. It has everything to do with what activates inside you in that first window after the collapse. Three patterns show up consistently, across income levels, across age groups, across every type of financial loss imaginable. Three types, three completely different recovery speeds, three completely different outcomes. And right now, I want you to start thinking about which one you recognize in yourself. Because by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly which type you are and exactly what that means for your next move.
Type 1, the dull. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus is not the most naturally gifted person in the room. He will be the first to tell you that. When his financial world collapsed, a layoff that came after a medical bill that never fully got paid, that came after a divorce that drained what was left, Marcus did not have a master plan. He did not wake up with a breakthrough strategy. He did not read 15 books about wealth building in 30 days. He just did the next small thing. He called about one collection notice, he picked up one extra shift, he canceled one subscription he had forgotten about. He paid $40 toward the smallest balance he had. Then he did it again the following week. Same small actions, different Tuesday, no drama, no announcement, no motivational speech to himself in the mirror. 3 years later, Marcus had cleared $23,000 in debt. He had built a $4,000 emergency fund. He had not missed a single bill payment in 22 months. Nobody would have predicted that outcome watching him in year 1. He looked too slow, too undramatic, too ordinary. But here is what Marcus understood that most people completely miss. Recovery is not an event, it is a frequency. And showing up at the right frequency consistently beats brilliance every single time. The dull does not recover with a single explosive move. They recover by refusing to stop moving, ever. While everyone else is waiting for the right moment or the right plan or the right amount of confidence, the dull is already on their 14th consecutive Tuesday of doing the next small thing. Walt Disney was a dull. After his bankruptcy in 1923, he did not arrive in Hollywood with a grand vision already fully formed. He arrived with $40 and kept moving. One small project, one small step, one small thing after another until the small things became something nobody could ignore. But here is the shadow side of the dull that you need to understand. Consistency without direction is just moving in a circle. If Marcus had kept doing the same things that caused his collapse, he would have collapsed again, just as consistently. The dull is powerful when they point their consistency at the right target. They are dangerous to themselves when they aim it at the familiar. The question for every dull is not, how do I keep moving? It is, am I moving in the right direction? Pause right here. If you recognize yourself in Marcus, drop dull in the comments right now. Let's see how many dulls are watching.
Type 2, the controller. Now let me tell you about Diana. Diana felt the ruin differently from Marcus. She did not feel lost at that kitchen table. She did not feel blank. She felt something closer to rage, not at the bills, not even at herself, at the stillness, at the idea that nothing was happening, that this was her life and it was just sitting there deteriorating while she sat with it. The thought of staying stuck for another week was physically unbearable to Diana. Another month was unthinkable. Another year was not even a concept her brain would process. So Diana moved fast. Within 2 weeks of her financial collapse, she had a second job. Within a month, she had called every creditor and negotiated 2 of her 3 overdue accounts down to manageable payment plans. Within 6 months, her numbers looked dramatically better than they had in years. People around her were stunned. Diana had pulled herself out of ruin at a speed that looked almost superhuman. MC Hammer was a controller. When the money started disappearing, he moved fast. He kept spending because spending felt like control. He kept the entourage because the entourage felt like proof that things were still working. He kept moving at full speed because stopping felt like admitting something he was not ready to admit. The controller's greatest strength and greatest vulnerability are the exact same thing, the refusal to be still. Because Diana also made 3 financial decisions in that first month that she would spend the next 2 years cleaning up. She refinanced her car at a terrible interest rate because she needed cash fast and did not stop to shop around. She put $2,000 on a new credit card to cover an expense that could have waited 60 days. She took a second job that paid well but destroyed her sleep, damaged her performance at her primary job, and eventually cost her that primary job 6 months later. Diana recovered fast. Then she had to recover again, because the same urgency that saved her also rushed her past the decisions that needed to be slow. Here is the shadow side of the controller. Speed is their drug. It makes them feel in control. But not every financial repair is an emergency. Some of them require waiting. Some of them require sitting still long enough to think. And sitting still feels to the controller like losing. The question for every controller is not, how do I move faster? It is, which of these moves actually needs to happen right now, and which ones need 48 more hours? If Diana sounds like you, drop controller in the comments. I want to see the controllers.
Type 3, the opportunist. Now let me tell you about someone I know well. The opportunist sits at that kitchen table and feels something that makes absolutely no logical sense given the circumstances. Underneath the fear, and there is real fear, do not let anyone tell you the opportunist is fearless. Underneath the cold hands and the racing thoughts and the impossible math, there is something else running quietly. A question that has no business being asked in that moment but shows up anyway. What does this make possible that was not possible before? When Al Pacino lost his $50 million, he did not retire, he did not disappear. He went back to work with the kind of hunger that only someone who has lost everything and rebuilt their relationship with their craft can access. He stopped doing projects for the money. He started doing projects for the work. The collapse stripped away everything that had accumulated around his talent and left just the talent itself, raw, undecorated, hungry. That is the opportunist in motion. The opportunist does not ask, how do I get back to where I was? They ask whether where they were was even worth getting back to. The job they stayed in because it was stable is gone now. The lifestyle they maintained for appearances has been stripped away by circumstances. The identity they were performing, the person who had it together, has been publicly dismantled. And in that dismantling, the opportunist finds something unexpected: permission. Permission to try the thing they were always too comfortable or too scared to attempt. Permission to use the knowledge from this collapse as the raw material for something they never could have built without it. Permission to stop pretending the old structure was working when deep down they always knew it had cracks. Daniel had his car repossessed and filed for bankruptcy after his divorce. He now owns a 7-figure business. The good thing about hitting rock bottom is sometimes you hit so hard you bounce. That bounce is the opportunist's specialty. But here is the shadow side, and I'm going to be honest about this one because I know it personally. The opportunist can use reinvention as an escape, always starting the new thing, always finding the new angle, always excited about the next door that just opened, using creativity and vision as a way to avoid the unglamorous stability work that every real recovery requires at some point. The opportunist can spend years being genuinely excited about genuinely promising ideas and still be broke, because excitement alone is not a budget, and vision alone is not a foundation. The scared opportunist, the one who feels that door opening but is honest about the fear underneath it, is actually the most powerful type when they learn one thing: you have to finish the foundation before you build the floor. If this is you, drop opportunist in the comments and be honest with yourself about the shadow side too.
Here is why these 3 types are so consistent across people and circumstances and income levels. When your financial world collapses, your brain registers it as a survival threat. The same circuitry that handles physical danger handles financial danger. And your brain has a default response to that threat that was set early in your life and reinforced thousands of times since without you ever noticing it happening. The dull's brain says, keep moving at a pace I can sustain. Movement equals safety. The controller's brain says, act now before this gets worse. Speed equals safety. The opportunist's brain says, find a new angle because this one is finished. Reinvention equals safety. None of these responses is wrong. Each one is a survival mechanism that genuinely works. The question is whether you understand yours well enough to use the strength and guard against the shadow before it costs you the recovery you already started building. Now, some of you are thinking, Brown, I am not just one of these. I see myself in 2 of them, maybe all 3. And honestly, you are probably right. Most people have a dominant type and a secondary type. Under moderate pressure, you might operate as an opportunist. Under extreme pressure, you might collapse into controller behavior because the urgency overrides everything else. Under prolonged pressure with no visible end in sight, you might find the dull in you activating because it is the only response that feels sustainable. What matters is knowing your dominant response, the one that shows up first, fastest, and hardest the moment the ground disappears. That is the one driving your recovery, whether you are consciously aware of it or not. Everything else is secondary. But here's what changes the moment you identify your type.
You stop calling yourself lazy when you are actually a dull who needs a consistent system, not a dramatic breakthrough. You stop calling yourself reckless when you are actually a controller who needs one deliberate pause built into your process. You stop calling yourself unfocused when you are actually an opportunist who needs one stable foundation before the next door gets your full energy. Your type is not your limitation, it is your instruction manual, and most people go through their entire financial life without ever reading it.
For the dull, build the track, not the goal. Do not set a dramatic financial target. You do not need one. Set a non-negotiable weekly action instead. One bill reviewed, one balance reduced by any amount, one unnecessary expense canceled, one thing, every single week without exception. Write it on a physical piece of paper and put it somewhere you cannot avoid seeing it. The dull does not need motivation. They do not need inspiration. They need a track to run on. Give yourself the track and your consistency will do the rest. The goal will arrive on its own. You just have to keep showing up on Tuesdays. For the controller, build the pause. Before any financial decision made under pressure, institute a mandatory 48-hour hold. Not because your instincts are wrong, because your best decisions and your worst decisions feel exactly identical in the moment. The 48-hour hold costs you nothing when the decision was right. It saves you thousands when it was not. Speed is still your weapon. The pause is just the safety on the trigger. Use it every single time without negotiation. For the opportunist, finish the foundation before you build the floor. Give yourself one non-negotiable stability target before the next new opportunity gets your full energy and attention. $1,000 in savings that does not move for any reason. 2 consecutive months of on-time payments. 1 debt cleared completely, down to 0. Not because the new opportunity is not real, not because your vision is wrong, because the new opportunity needs a foundation under it where it becomes another story about what almost worked. The scared opportunist who builds the foundation first becomes genuinely unstoppable. That combination of stability and vision is exactly where real lasting wealth gets built. Al Pacino lost $50 million and rebuilt. MC Hammer lost everything and rebuilt. Walt Disney lost his first company with $40 left to his name and rebuilt the most recognizable entertainment empire in human history. Not because they were special, not because they had advantages you do not have, because something activated inside them when the ground disappeared and they understood which direction to run. The dull ran slowly and never stopped. The controller ran fast and learned when to pause. The opportunist stopped running toward the old life entirely and built something better from the rubble. One of those is you. You already know which one. So tell me, drop it in the comments right now. Dull, controller, opportunist. And if you have the shadow side figured out too, tell me that as well. I want to see where this community lands. And if you know someone sitting in their own financial ruin right now, send them this video. Not because it will fix the numbers, because it will help them understand which direction they are already wired to run. That knowledge is worth more than any budget spreadsheet ever written. Subscribe to Brown. We are just getting started. I will see you in the next one.